Ethan had always preferred the quiet of space to the noise of crowded cities. The hum of his starship, the endless stretch of stars, and the occasional thrill of danger were far better companions than any human interaction. He was a skilled pilot, known in some sectors for his courage and quick thinking. Yet, even he hadn't expected that one routine patrol in the outer sectors would completely change his life. The distress signal appeared suddenly, blinking red on his console. It was weak, almost drowned by the interference from nearby asteroid belts, but he could hear it clearly, a faint, trembling voice calling for help. Ethan's instincts kicked in immediately. He traced the signal to a small shuttle drifting near the edge of a hostile planet, surrounded by swirling storm clouds and dangerous electromagnetic fields. The shuttle was tiny and battered, clearly having been through a violent struggle. Ethan maneuvered his ship closer, scanning the shuttle. There were 4 life signs inside, all female, though he couldn't make out any details through the damaged hull. Something about the signal tugged at him. He couldn't ignore it. Without hesitation, he suited up and prepared for a landing. The planet's surface was unforgiving. Jagged rocks jutted out of the red-brown soil, and the wind carried a sharp metallic taste that made Ethan's throat dry instantly. The shuttle lay half buried under debris from a recent lightning storm, its hull scorched and cracked. The door was jammed, and smoke seeped from the damaged engine. Ethan moved quickly, relying on his toolkit and strength. Sparks flew as he cut through the mangled door, the smell of burning metal filling the air. He barely had time to take a breath before the first alien woman appeared, her large violet eyes wide with fear. She was unlike any being he had ever seen, tall, slender, with skin that shimmered faintly under the storm light. Her companions soon emerged, each equally striking but different. One with soft blue scales along her arms, another with hair like flowing silver strands, and the last with faint glowing patterns across her shoulders. "Stay calm," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the danger around them. "I'm here to get you out of this." The aliens didn't speak his language, but they seemed to understand him. Their eyes darted nervously to the storm above, then back at the damaged shuttle. He noticed the youngest of the 4 clutching her arm, her face pale and trembling. He acted quickly, creating a makeshift harness to lift them safely into his ship. The storm wasn't done with them. Lightning struck near the shuttle, sending shards of metal flying. Ethan shielded the aliens as best he could, cursing under his breath. The shuttle groaned ominously, threatening to collapse. Finally, with one last heave, he lifted the last alien woman into his ship and sealed the door. Inside the safety of his ship, the 4 aliens huddled together, their breathing heavy, their wide eyes studying him. Ethan scanned them for injuries. Minor burns, bruises, and cuts were all he could find, but their expressions told him they had endured more than just the storm. He activated the translator on his wrist, a recent upgrade he had installed for emergencies like this. A mechanical hum filled the cabin before the first alien spoke. Her voice was soft but melodic, each word carrying a rhythm that made Ethan pause. "Thank you," she said in broken galactic common, the universal language used across human colonies and alien species alike. The others nodded, adding their own hesitant words. Ethan smiled faintly. "You're safe now. I'll get you home." The journey back was tense. The storm had left residual turbulence in the planet's upper atmosphere, forcing Ethan to navigate carefully. The aliens didn't speak much, instead observing him, their eyes flicking between the instruments and his movements. He sensed curiosity mixed with caution. They had never encountered humans like him before, someone willing to risk his life for strangers. By the time they reached Xyloran space, Ethan had begun to notice small gestures. One of the aliens brushing a hand against his arm as if testing his reaction, another tilting her head in fascination when he fixed a flickering light panel, and the youngest quietly mimicking his actions when he calibrated the navigation system. There was intelligence and grace in each of them, a sharp contrast to the fear they had shown earlier. The Xyleran Council awaited their arrival. Ethan had expected a simple thank you, perhaps a token of gratitude, but he found himself in a chamber filled with grand architecture, glowing softly under alien light. The council, composed of elders and diplomats, regarded him with serious expressions. Their leader, a tall figure with iridescent skin and eyes like liquid silver, stepped forward. "You have rescued our women," the leader said, voice resonant and formal. "Such an act is rare. It is also binding." Ethan blinked. "Binding? I don't understand." The council explained the law. In Xyleran culture, saving 4 members of their species simultaneously created a legal bond. The rescuer was considered joined to the rescued individuals, a bond recognized by law and tradition. It was not merely symbolic, it carried obligations and responsibilities that lasted a lifetime. Ethan felt his heart race. He respected alien customs, but this was unprecedented. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "I just helped them survive." The council nodded. "Intent does not change the law. You are now bound to all 4. The rituals to formalize the bond must begin." The aliens themselves were quiet, watching him closely. There was no anger, only an expression that mixed hope, curiosity, and, surprisingly, relief. They did not speak of romance, yet the closeness they shared with him during the rescue had already formed a tentative connection. Ethan followed them to the first ritual, which was to take place in the Haven of Trials, a sacred Xyleran site deep within the mountains of their homeworld. The landscape was breathtaking. Towering crystalline formations reflected the light in rainbow hues, and the air was thick with a faint hum of energy that resonated through his chest. The first test was a trial of courage, designed to assess his bravery and willingness to face danger for the sake of the bonded individuals. He and the 4 aliens were led to a cliffside, where jagged rocks jutted out over a chasm that seemed bottomless. Floating platforms hovered over the void, moving unpredictably, and Ethan was expected to navigate them while protecting the aliens from sudden attacks by native predators trained for the test. Ethan's hands gripped the controls instinctively. The first predator, a winged creature with sharp talons, swooped at them. Lyra reacted immediately, pushing herself behind Ethan, but he countered with precision, using his knowledge of movement and timing to divert the creature. Each alien demonstrated unique skills. Sari darted quickly to activate traps that slowed the predators. Kina used her strength to move heavy debris to block attacks, and Velia's calm focus allowed her to anticipate hazards before they appeared. Step by step, Ethan led them across the platforms, the wind whipping against their faces and the gap below a dizzying drop. It was exhausting, yet thrilling. Every successful move strengthened their trust. By the time they reached the end of the trial, the aliens were smiling faintly, a gesture of approval that filled Ethan with a mix of relief and pride. The council awaited them afterward, nodding in approval. "You have passed the first trial. Courage is proven." Ethan's relief was short-lived. The next trial, a test of intelligence, awaited. They were led into an ancient chamber, filled with floating panels, holographic puzzles, and alien inscriptions that glowed faintly in the dim light. He had to solve the puzzles to unlock the path forward while the aliens assisted him. Each puzzle required teamwork and lateral thinking. Ethan quickly realized that brute force wouldn't work. He needed to pay attention to each woman's strengths. Lyra excelled at logic patterns, pointing out sequences that Ethan missed. Sari's intuition guided them through misleading paths. Kina's analytical mind calculated risks and consequences, while Velia's memory helped recall subtle clues from earlier panels. Together, they solved puzzle after puzzle, each success strengthening their bond and giving Ethan a deeper appreciation for their intelligence and individuality. By the end of the intelligence trial, Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had begun to understand these women not just as those he had rescued, but as complex individuals with strengths, fears, and hopes. They laughed softly among themselves, teasing him gently when he made small mistakes, a sound that made his chest tighten in a way he hadn't expected. The final trial, a test of empathy, was scheduled for the next day. It would push him further, requiring him to fully understand and respect the emotions and desires of each alien. Ethan realized that this was more than surviving challenges. It was about forming a connection that honored their individuality while respecting the bond. As night fell, he sat alone, staring at the stars. He thought about the journey that had begun with a simple rescue, the danger he had faced, and the responsibility now placed upon him. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing: his life had changed forever. These four alien women were no longer strangers. They had become part of his destiny, and the galaxy would never be the same for any of them again. The sun rose over the crystalline mountains of the Xylaran homeworld, casting long, shimmering rays across the landscape. Ethan had slept little, his mind racing with anticipation and a mix of nerves. Today was the final trial, the test of empathy, the most important one. It was not about strength, agility, or intelligence. It was about understanding, respect, and the delicate balance of emotions among the four alien women he had rescued. The haven of trials hummed softly as he entered the chamber, a large open space surrounded by towering crystal pillars that glowed with an inner light. The council was already present, their eyes observing him quietly. The four women, Lyra, Sari, Kina, and Velia, stood slightly apart, each giving him a look that seemed to contain hope, trust, and an unspoken question. Could he truly honor their individuality while holding the bond he now carried? The first part of the trial was simple in concept but difficult in execution. Each woman would present a personal challenge or fear, and Ethan had to respond appropriately, demonstrating understanding, patience, and empathy. Lyra stepped forward first, her expression serious. "You must show you understand the cost of survival," she said. Suddenly, holographic images filled the chamber, scenes from their lives before they were captured. Ethan saw villages destroyed, families lost, and moments of despair etched in their eyes. He realized that while he had saved them physically, their emotional scars ran deep. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands steady. "I can't undo what you have lost," he said softly, "but I can promise that I will stand by you, protect you, and respect your past. I will never treat you as a burden or a prize. You are individuals, and I will honor each of you." Lyra's eyes softened slightly, a glimmer of approval shining through. The holograms dissolved, replaced by the image of Sari, who was smiling but tense. She led him to a challenge of patience, navigating a floating labyrinth where every wrong turn triggered harmless but disorienting illusions. Ethan realized that this was a test of his ability to remain calm and supportive under confusion, reflecting the emotional challenges Sari had endured in her life. He moved carefully, listening to subtle cues from Sari. She pointed out invisible paths, adjusted floating panels, and sometimes simply held his hand to guide him. Step by step, they moved through the labyrinth, Ethan demonstrating attentiveness, trust, and the willingness to follow her guidance when necessary. By the time they reached the center, Sari's laughter filled the chamber, light and genuine, a sound that lifted a weight from Ethan's chest. Kina's challenge came next, and it was one of strength, physical, mental, and emotional. A large, shifting platform suspended above a void demanded coordination and strategy. Kina insisted he carry a heavy weight while simultaneously solving shifting patterns on the platform. It was grueling, but Ethan quickly adapted, combining strength with careful observation and strategy. Kina tested his limits, not to hurt him, but to see if he could manage pressure while keeping the well-being of others in mind. Velia's trial was quiet, almost subtle yet profound. She created a scenario that simulated loneliness and vulnerability. Ethan was separated from the others in a mirrored chamber, confronted with the illusion of failing them, of letting them down. He felt a pang of helplessness, but he reminded himself of the promise he had made. He would protect them, respect them, and never take them for granted. He spoke to the illusions, reassuring them, apologizing for mistakes that were not real, and showing that he understood the fear of abandonment. By the time all 4 challenges concluded, Ethan was exhausted, drenched in sweat, but also filled with a profound sense of connection. The 4 women approached him, their expressions unreadable but their eyes soft, full of cautious admiration. The council stepped forward, nodding. "You have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and empathy," the lead elder said. "You have earned the right to be legally bonded to these 4. You understand the law, the responsibilities, and the depth of connection required. From this moment, your bond is recognized and eternal." Ethan felt a rush of emotions, relief, pride, and an unexpected warmth in his chest. He looked at the 4 women who now stood close by his side, each with a small, almost imperceptible smile. They had been through terror, confusion, and loss, yet they had allowed him to share this moment with them. Life after the trials was not simple. The Xyleran culture required certain traditions to be observed for bonded pairs. Ethan learned about these rituals, which included shared responsibilities, mutual decision-making, and respect for individuality. Each woman had her own needs, preferences, and personality traits, and Ethan committed himself to learning them all. He discovered that Lyra thrived on planning and strategy, often helping him anticipate challenges on missions. Sari brought humor and lightness to tense moments, keeping spirits high. Kina was fiercely protective, always ready to stand by his side in danger. Velia offered calm, wisdom, and emotional insight, helping Ethan understand perspectives he had never considered. Together, they began to explore the galaxy, taking on missions that required skill, courage, and teamwork. Ethan found that having 4 partners was challenging. Each had opinions, each had desires, and sometimes conflicts arose. But the bond they shared created a foundation stronger than any he had experienced. He learned to listen, to compromise, and to trust in their abilities as much as they trusted in his. One mission brought them to a remote colony threatened by a hostile pirate faction. Ethan piloted the ship while the 4 women coordinated defenses, strategies, and negotiations with the colony leaders. Their synergy was remarkable. Lyra analyzed enemy movements, Sari created diversions, Kina defended the vulnerable, and Velia mediated disputes between frightened colonists. Ethan realized that their combined strengths made them nearly unstoppable. They had become more than a team. They were a family in every sense of the word, bonded not just by law but by mutual respect and shared experiences. Even in quiet moments, the bond deepened. During a long flight through empty space, the 4 women shared stories of their homeworld, their families, and their dreams. Ethan listened, asking questions and offering insights from his human perspective. Each conversation strengthened his understanding of them as individuals, not just as part of the bonded group. He found joy in small acts, preparing a meal together, repairing the ship systems, or simply watching the stars while sharing silent companionship. However, life was not without danger. The galaxy was unpredictable, and threats often came unannounced. On one mission, they encountered a rogue AI-controlled ship attacking a civilian transport. Ethan and the 4 women coordinated quickly. Ethan piloted their vessel with precision. Lyra hacked into the AI systems to disable weapons. Sari created holographic decoys to distract the enemy. Kina led a boarding team to shut down the AI core, and Velia coordinated evacuation. For the civilians, the mission was successful, but the intensity reminded Ethan that trust and teamwork were not just lessons, they were survival tools. Over time, Ethan began to understand the true meaning of the Xylaran law. The bond was not a limitation but a framework that encouraged respect, cooperation, and mutual growth. It challenged him to become a better person, not just a skilled pilot. He learned patience, empathy, and how to navigate complex relationships with care and attention. The four women, in turn, saw in him a human capable of extraordinary courage and adaptability, someone who honored their culture while remaining true to himself. One evening, as the five of them gazed at a nebula painting the sky with colors unseen on Earth, Ethan reflected on how far they had come. What began as a simple rescue mission had transformed into a lifelong journey of partnership, trust, and shared adventure. He realized that the legal bond, once shocking and overwhelming, had become a source of strength and purpose. The four women were not just companions. They were friends, allies, and guides who had changed him in ways he could never have imagined. The galaxy stretched before them, full of unknown dangers and opportunities. Ethan knew that challenges would come, but he also knew that he would face them with courage, intelligence, and empathy, alongside the four remarkable women who had trusted him with their lives. Together they were stronger, wiser, and unbreakable, a human and four alien women bound not just by law, but by respect, trust, and shared destiny. As their ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving the nebula behind, Ethan allowed himself a small, contented smile. He had rescued four lives, and in doing so had discovered a family, a purpose, and a future he could not have imagined. In a universe filled with chaos and conflict, he had found a bond that would endure, a connection that was not defined by rules alone, but by loyalty, understanding, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. The stars streaked past them, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly at home among the infinite expanse of the galaxy, with four extraordinary women by his side, ready to face every challenge together.